you can't really work in this demographic, religious trauma, without coming across purity culture indoctrination. That's one of the biggest issues that people have.
Okay, cool. I want to make sure we get there. Let's go back and just start at the beginning. Welcome back to If I'm Really Honest, where I seek truth without tribalism. It's a place where ignorance isn't punished, curiosity is rewarded, and conflict doesn't have to mean contempt. As always, I hope that I've brought you a guest that you don't fully agree with, and if you've brought yourself, you're way ahead of me on that one. Today I'm joined by Janice Selby, a former fundamentalist. She's a registered professional counselor, and she's also the creator of the Conference on Religious Trauma. She's the author of Divorcing Religion, and someone who's walked through the fire of deconstruction and come out the other side with some wisdom, empathy, and some humor. Today we're going to talk about how deconstructing parallels with grieving a death, what we all have to unlearn from purity culture, what happens when you actually take ownership of your life and your body, and much, much more. This all actually connects to my upcoming video on Christian divorce, so make sure that you're subscribed so you get notified when that's released. Now I give you Janice Selby.
I really have a lot of respect for anybody who is willing to question cherished beliefs. And so many of us had those beliefs handed to us, and part of the process of figuring our stuff out is determining where did that belief come from? Who gave me that belief? How old was I when I received, that information? And then also wondering, is it potentially some kind of an addiction to certainty? So when religions, conspiracy theories, and cults all offer certainty, security, order, and community, and those are things that humans crave. We are desperate for those things, and those various groups offer them to us tied up with a shiny red bow. So hopefully that'll give us a little bit of wiggle room to step back, just take a step back and consider some of those things. Just because somebody told us something, even if someone else really believes it, doesn't necessarily make it true. And, I get my clients to do values clarification work, values clarification exercises, and they'll probably find that a lot of the same values that they had when they were a deeply religious person, they will still have quite a few of those values. So, speaking
Yeah.
for me personally, there was a shift in some of the values because when I was deeply devout, it would have been obedience and submission. Those would have been at the top of my list as a
Mm.
woman. But now that I've left, those actually aren't on the list. Curiosity is right at the top. Freedom to be able to explore whatever I want, those sorts of things. But things that are the same are my compassion, my concern for other people, trying to do justly to other people and to love mercy. I mean, those are things that now I'm a humanist. And that's another thing for people to, they kind of have to grapple with that because often in fundamentalist Christianity, it's a slur to call someone a humanist or a secular humanist. But all it means to be a humanist is that basically you love people, you love humans, you believe in equality for all people, you believe in dignity
Yeah.
for all people, and instead of the 10 religious commandments, now I abide by the 10 humanist commitments. So
Do you,
it's not like we leave something and then just jump into a void. There are other philosophies to consider.
is it possible to be a Christian and also a humanist at the same time?
Um, some say yes, some say no, because typically humanism does tend to kind of have a basis of science. And some Christians have a problem with some science,
Sure.
as you know. But I mean, certainly the aspect of loving people and wanting what's best for them, believing that everybody should have a say in their own life,
Yeah.
that people should not be persecuted. because maybe they belong to the queer community, or they're a different color, or they have a different set of beliefs. And so Christianity runs such a large spectrum, from people who are extremely progressive and loving, and just happen to also love Jesus in there too, and then to folks who instead are quite rigid and dogmatic and have a very small circle of whom
Yeah.
they would accept and love.
Yeah. Yeah. Can you talk some about what you see, like maybe a common average, even though there's no such thing, um, path through a deconversion? Like what can someone expect to run into if they're at the beginning of this thing and they're perhaps have that road ahead of them?
Yes. So it is a mourning and grieving process that people end up going through, and they are not usually very keen to go through it. It can be quite painful. So some of the feelings that we would grapple with when we've suffered the loss of a loved one, someone who has died. And that's, of course, when we go through a divorce, similar loss patterns there. So we can have shock, anger, confusion, um, you know, disappointment, all these things. And it's not linear because mourning is not a linear process. So we can expect to be bouncing back and forth between things. Even bargaining, can come up.
Can
And
you talk
as we
about perhaps the stages of grief and what they look like in the religious context?
right,
How they
yes.
draw the parallels for me?
Sure. Actually, when I was writing my book, Divorcing Religion, a Memoir and Survival Handbook, I did a whole chapter on grief because those of us um, who have been religious and are no longer religious, and we've suffered some kind of religious trauma, there are four types of grief specifically related to this loss. There's anticipatory grief when we're still maybe sitting in the pew, but starting to recognize I don't actually believe all of this the same way that I did, or I think something's wrong here, but I don't want to lose this. I don't want to lose my friends, my loved ones who do hold this belief. So we're kind of anticipating some of those losses. And then there's ambiguous loss because there's no body. And so that's quite difficult. I mean, my world fell apart and disintegrated around me when I lost my faith because it was my identity, my community, my worldview. I still had to get up and go to work every morning. And my
Right.
boss, even if I had if my dog had died or something, the boss
Yes.
would have been, oh my God, take the day off, this sort of thing. That is not what it's like with ambiguous loss, and there's no body to bury. It's hard for people to recognize that you've
Yeah.
really lost something. And disenfranchised grief is similar. Disenfranchised grief is not publicly mourned or openly acknowledged. So it might be if a woman has had an abortion, or in my case, I had a family member who went to prison for a violent crime. I wasn't allowed to publicly mourn that my young nephew was now going to live decades in prison because I could only focus, on the people who had been harmed, obviously. So that's disenfranchised grief. Um, and then unresolved grief, which is cumulative in nature, and every new loss reopens it. And that is kind of unfinished business. So those are some of the different types of grief related to religious trauma. And then we're feeling confused. How do I know if what the pastor said isn't true? How do I know? Am I believing other things in my life that are not true? So it can be a very confusing time. We
Yeah.
can also want to pull away from groups rather than when we are losing one community, we need to be leaning into other supports for ourselves. But people are very shy about joining anything again after that. um, we can also struggle with feeling that we're being disingenuous. Maybe we don't feel safe to tell our partner our children, our boss. I mean, it's a pretty big deal when you're a pastor or a priest and you don't believe anymore. And for those people, I recommend they reach out to the Clergy Project, because
Yeah.
Clergy Project understands all about that.
Real quick,
But
so for
yeah.
people who haven't heard of that, the Clergy Project is the, you could probably describe it better than I can.
Oh, I would say Clergy Project really is a group of people who either they worked related to the church. So they might have been pastors, priests, they might have been missionaries. I mean, could even be a church secretary, whatever it is.
Yeah.
People whose livelihoods depended on them living out this belief system. And then they don't believe anymore. And it's not like, I mean, if you have a mortgage to pay, you're
Right.
not just going to quit your job like that. So Clergy Project, I would say, is a safe space to connect with other people who can relate and potentially help you walk through some of these things. But it's different from, say, recovering from religion or Journey Free, which are organizations that are kind of open for anybody who's
Right.
recovering from religious trauma.
I'm pretty convinced there's an underestimation of how many uh, ministers, clergy, pastors, whatever you want to call them, are in the same boat that you are if you're going through a deconversion, because you feel like you're looking to the pastor, but a lot of times that pastor is up there feeling the exact same way that you are in the pew. But like you're saying, what are you going to do? And if you're wrong, like if you are wrong in the pew, you have lost your identity and your faith in your community and perhaps your family and all these things. If they're wrong, not only have they lost that, but they have also led all these people astray. So it's like, that times however many souls that you feel responsible for. So if you're a person who's in the pew and you're not in full-time ministry, and you feel like, but they seem so confident, there's a good chance that you too are doing the same Googling outside of church.
Yes, and people are just people. So I think that anger can be also a really big common aspect of the deconstruction, deconversion process. We feel angry that we were duped, that we believed something, especially if we spent decades and decades in. If the only reason we married our partner was because we shared that belief, maybe we closed off potential career and financial avenues because of this. So anger can be a really big part of it.
Yeah.
I found it helpful to watch Joseph Campbell's series, The Power of Myth, on YouTube with Bill Moyers. And that really helped me to see that the issue is just more so often misinterpretation. So things being taken literally that were not meant to be taken literally. And that helped me to feel less angry, like that someone purposely led me down the wrong way, because that's not what it was. And even my parents did what they thought was the absolute best and right thing to do, which was to train me up in the way they thought that I should go. So that kind of comes with maturity also.
Well, and I think that at some point along the way, they have the realization that they are that to someone else. And then they have to deal with that pain too of like, oh, I did this same thing to someone else. And depending on how seriously you took the Great Commission, you may have done that to a lot of people.
Right. When we think about 12-step programs, part of that is making amends to other people. And there are definite parallels with religious addiction and, substance or process addictions. So adult children of alcoholics, ACOA, that's kind of how they're referred to. I often refer to my folks as acorns, adult children of religious nuts, because that's just how we grew up. And it is often like our parents were addicted to the religion. That's where all the care and affection and attention and importance was, rather than with us. So we do share a laundry list with those folks as well. And there's nothing easy about this journey, about deconstructing. So some people do feel immense relief upon realizing, there's no hell. Oh, I'm so grateful. But then I remember waking up at like 5 in the morning and going, oh no,
Right.
if that means there's no hell, then maybe there's no heaven. And that was a very big thing for me to have to work my way through.
That's
Oh,
so foreign
I
to
got
me.
off your topic, Phil. I'm sorry, because you mentioned about or you were asking about, oh, the idea of making amends, like if we really followed the Great Commission. And the people that I mainly felt that I needed to make amends to were my daughters. Because I mean I had homeschooled them. I was very they knew me as wound pretty tightly, very fundamentalist. And then when I suddenly was not anymore, they practically got whiplash from watching that Gong Show. They had a front row seat to that, and it wasn't pretty. And there were scars, emotional scars from the things that I forced on them when they were children, purity culture, these different things, the things I scared them with, Fox's Book of Martyrs, all these sorts of things. uh, and then there also were, it was scary and weird for them when I suddenly changed so drastically. So for me, it meant writing both of them their own separate, very detailed letters about here's how I see that I hurt you and my beliefs hurt you. And I want you to know I'm so very sorry. And I welcome your questions if you have any questions for me. And I really just want you to know I'm terribly sorry for that. And that was through great tears. That was hard to do for me to recognize and own ways that I had hurt them. But I think it was very powerful and an important part of the healing for the family.
Yeah, there's so much that we all share in common. Actually, one of the things that I think we most of us share in common, and maybe you can disabuse me of this notion, but the accusations from the church, and again, I feel like the church members feel like they've got special, unique insights, and it's just boringly common. The accusations of we're just going to. I mean, we all the deconstructionists can finish all the sentences from the church of you just want to follow your sin. You were never really a believer in the first place. And I'm gonna be as generous as possible and say I think those people in a lot of cases are trying to be helpful and trying to get you back to a safe place. But also as the person who is going through this struggle and have those accusations heaped on you, yes, the opposite of helpful. In the same way that back to the divorcing analogy, like I feel like if you're going through a divorce and someone's like, well, did you ever try buying her flowers, like oh gee, you think I didn't think of that, like you think I wasn't trying this whole time. But like that's again someone who's just trying to be helpful, like, oh well, I've got this idea, maybe this will help your situation. And it's just irritating. How do you respond to someone who is coming to you and they're dealing with the accusations from the church that the church feels are unique and they're just harmful?
Yeah, that can be so painful. For some people, it's just annoying. For other people, it's really painful because these were people that they felt very close to and that they love and they care how they are thought of by these people. So when I'm working with my clients, I do remind them that it's a tremendous fear that comes over people who are deeply entrenched in a specific ideology when someone they care about is rejecting that ideology. And when our ideology and our identity are enmeshed, we can't, it's too hard for us to pull them apart. So someone criticizing our beliefs feels like they're criticizing us. um, so I like my clients to be able to take a step back from that and recognize where that is coming from. It's not coming from a rational place. It's coming from an emotional, fear-based place. These people who are hurling accusations or imploring them to just get on their knees and come back to Jesus. I am telling you, once that genie is out of the bottle, once you've seen behind the curtain, you can't, once the mind has been expanded, it can never return to its original dimensions. I think that's Oliver Wendell Holmes said that. And it's very true. And I know because I tried, because I did try and go back to church because I love church. Sunday mornings, singing, being together with other people, that was very important to me. I tried. I went back and the hymns about God's love or whatever just turned to sawdust in my mouth. I just sat there and wept and realized I don't belong here. This is not my place anymore. And I also didn't want to um, cause anyone else the same distress I was going through. It's a very individual journey. You can't go and pull people out of the pews. People have to have their own revelations, their own wake up calls, come to their own conclusions. And then all we can do is be on the outside, waiting for them, just ready to support them.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like that's a strong impulse of a lot of people who leave is like, oh, I need to share this revelation with the world, which is why we all leave and immediately write our books or our blogs because we're wanting to share this. But I like you're saying, if your mind is not ready for that, if you're not in the right place for that, there's no way to go in. And the heartbreak for me in particular has been that equal. Like I'm fine with like you're in the church and I'm not in the church. I don't care about the religion. I'll let you stay in the religion. I just want to keep you as a community, as a friend, as a family member, as a whatever. But that's not reciprocated on the other end because
Right.
they can't afford that or
It's
whatever.
too
I mean, how do you see
dangerous.
that? Yeah,
Yeah, I see. Like, what if I think folks who are still in the church might fear that our apostasy is contagious. And that's something that I found. I hardly heard from anybody when I stopped attending. It was shocking. That was even worse to me because, of
yeah,
course, here I thought that I was important to at least some people, but I think they were scared, and they didn't know what to say. Some said too much, but again, most people didn't say anything. I'm
yeah.
sorry, you asked a question and I don't know what happened to that.
Who cares? Your answer was better than my question. So, what in case there is anyone who is in church right now and they're not deconstructing and they're just watching us evil atheists, talk bad about their God, whatever. If there is someone watching who's still a Christian, what do you wish that Christians would say or do as someone is deconstructing? Is there a way for the church to do it better without becoming non-Christian?
That is so hard to say because I feel like, and so I'm thinking back to my time in the church. The reasons that I would befriend non-believers was not just to be friends with
Right.
them. It was always with the hope. There were strings attached. There were hopes that I could proselytize, that I could bring them to Jesus, or they'd find their way to Jesus, or whatever. And so that's often what it feels like when we leave. Those sometimes people who do actually make the effort, to stay connected to us, it can still feel too much like there are strings attached. It really is a huge shift in worldview when I no longer think that I need to believe the same things that they believe. And if that's all the relationship was about, and it turns out a lot of times that is what it was about. That's the common theme. And it's a pretty big one for me on the outside now to be able to say, oh, I'm going to have sex with whomever I want as long as they're consenting, and my life looks different from how it looked, but it's just different. It doesn't mean my life is bad. But I think when we're inside religion, we cannot help but judge because religion is very divisive.
Yeah. Okay. Man, that's not the answer I was hoping for, but I appreciate your insight, your perspective. Um, so let's go ahead and talk about sex because one of the things that someone leaving the church deals with is, of course, like the accusations that we're talking about. You're just leaving so you can follow your own sinful desires. In my experience, I know zero people, and I know tons of deconstructionists. I know zero of them who enjoyed the process or who chose the process or who wanted the process. So in my own anecdotal experience, 100% of the time, that accusation is wrong. No one is leaving the church just to follow their own sinful desires. However, the thing that it seems like atheists and deconstructionists don't like to admit is that also about the time that you leave and you don't have this voyeuristic imaginary friend who's watching you and has opinions about how you do things, also you realize, oh, I gave up all kinds of opportunities, whether they're, you know, all the things you're talking about, career opportunities, and then there are some others like, oh, I never got a tattoo, or I never drank or smoked, or I never had sex with the people that I wanted to, and so there is some like, well, I guess now that that imaginary friend has poofed away, maybe I've got to make a judgment for myself on this stuff. So I guess that's a long way of saying the church's accusation looks true from inside the church, because it does seem to be that as people leave the church, they also start thinking for themselves on these topics.
Yeah,
God doesn't want to
I
be
think
saved.
it has to do with the word sin and the idea of
Yeah.
sin. Sin is a human-made construct, just like religion. And so people who are bound by their religious beliefs are very quick to say, well, that's a sin, and that's a sin, and that's a sin. To me, the rule that guides my life basically now is I don't want to hurt someone else. That leaves a huge playing field. So
Yes.
I often tell people, if life is a buffet table and it's set with delectable delights as far as the eye can see, you put a religious person there, they're going to starve to death. Or they're only going to have one bite of the same dish over and over again. And that's not what I want. To me, life is about, I'm here to have experiences and collect as many experiences as I can. And I'm not going to judge myself for it. So I have to obey the laws of the land. And I don't want to be hurting people. Other than that, it's a pretty big field. Like I said, I can try anything. Some things I'll want to go back to the buffet table and try it again and again. And some things I'll be like, oh, I didn't enjoy that very much. I think I won't bother. I'll move on to the next thing. If I'm only going to be here for 90 years or however long it is, I want to get bang for my buck.
Yeah. Yeah. Does there seem to be to you an inherent link between religious trauma and sexuality, or deconversion and sexuality, or like how are those two paired in your experience?
Yeah, I would say the biggest complaints or issues that people come to me with have to do with loss of community when they leave church, because it's very hard to replicate that, um, and purity culture issues. So when we were raised in a situation where we had to become disconnected from our own bodies. Like even pleasuring yourself is considered sinful, let alone pleasuring someone else. And then you can only have that sexual pleasure if you are married in a heterosexual marriage. So that is, again, a very narrow view of things. And so then there's a huge amount of shame also that can go with that. And I think the best way to think of shame is if it's someone comes up to you and they have like a big garbage bag full to the top, and then it's got the word shame printed on it, and they go here and they're handing you that bag and they're insisting that you take that bag. But guess what? You do not have to take that bag. That is their shame. That's
Okay.
what brings them shame or makes them feel shameful. You don't have to take it. It's not about you. And shame typically is something that starts in childhood. It's a feeling we might become familiar with if there's possibly a correction that needs to be given, but it's given very unkindly and with a lot of judgment, then we start to internalize that. It's not just, oh, I did something wrong. It's, oh, I am wrong. I am
Yeah.
bad. So that can take a long time for people to work through. And I do definitely recommend people getting in touch with a secular therapist, secular coach or counselor, someone who understands religious trauma syndrome and someone who understands some of the damage from purity culture indoctrination.
Yeah, it seems, in my personal experience, like shame is not given from the outside, but it comes from the inside because of my personal background. So, like,
We've
someone else
internalized
doesn't.
it.
Right. So someone else didn't have to give it to me. Like I've already made that a part of my own system. So it doesn't have to include anybody else or any other accusations.
Well,
I just
at some point, we were taught or told something that we then internalized, or maybe we read it or whatever. But I mean, you look at a 2-year-old doesn't have 2-year-olds run around buck naked
right.
doing whatever they want. They're just all about being in their body and how that feels. They don't know until people start kind of forcing things onto them.
Yeah, and I can see that with my own kids when I am reactive to something that they're doing, and what the thing that they're doing is innocent. You know, you're eating a popsicle on the sofa. That's not inherently evil, but like I don't want my sofa to get stained, and I react, hey, what are you doing? And from then on, it feels internally to them like this is an evil thing to do, and it's not even if I'm not around, like just this feeling of like having a popsicle on the sofa or whatever it is, like it doesn't necessarily feel like that's a shame that's given to them. It's a shame that they've internalized. And so you don't necessarily have to have someone giving it to you in order to feel that. So then what is the process of externalizing those things, like realizing which things are actually from you, and what things you like and don't like and want to do with
Yeah.
your own internal morality versus the internalized morality that was given to you?
Right. So there's where the values clarification work can come in very handy. And also um, starting to keep a record of some of the thoughts that spring to mind. And then checking it out. Who said that to me? Whose voice do I hear that in? Who is inside there telling me it's bad, that's wrong, you should feel ashamed? So kind of examining those things in the light of day to see if they're true or not. It it is wrong to knowingly harm people and animals, or steal things, whatever. Those go against the laws of the land and also against one's conscience. um, but that's not most things. That's just some things. Otherwise, like I say, it's a very broad playing field of things that we can explore, and we don't need to feel any shame around them, especially when it comes to sexual desires and things that turn us on and feel good. We need to give ourselves permission to sit with some of those things. And just because someone else, it's not their cup of tea, that doesn't mean it's bad. We have to have consent. Consent is king all the time when it comes to sex. But otherwise, it's pretty open.
I would imagine that you have people who, like you're talking about the buffet that's open to you. The A lot of people who are just very comfortable in here, or maybe in here. Uh, um, yeah, for someone who is comfortable right here, how do they know if they're actually comfortable right there because of what was given to them, or if that's actually where they're comfortable?
Right. Yes, and this is a question that comes up sometimes. The idea of, am I really straight, or was straightness forced upon me? Like that was my only choice. Or for some people, it might be, do I even really like sex? Like if maybe they decide, actually no, they've never really enjoyed it, and it doesn't mean anything to them, and maybe they're asexual. They're not really interested at all. But that wasn't a choice that they had, because if they were, into a marriage, and especially I'm thinking if you're the woman in the heterosexual marriage in a church situation, your body belongs to your husband, or whatever else things that people were taught. So there does come a time of exploration where we need to um, kind of sit and figure out what we're comfortable with. And so sometimes um, I have folks, I just give very simple, very basic homework. Watch a romantic comedy. Does anything come up for you? Is there anything, does anything stir for you? Or some people say, I was attracted to my own gender from the time I was little, but I never I never could act on it because of the beliefs I was raised with. And I also get people coming to me in their 70s who are single and were never married and never dated because they waited their whole life for God to bring them the right person. And
Right.
now they're in their 70s going, I don't even know how to date somebody. I don't even know how to approach somebody. So I have a friend, Erica Smith. She's a sex educator in the United States. And she came up with a program called Purity Culture Dropout, the Purity Culture Dropout program. And I love referring people over to Erica for that because I think there's great value in it.
Yeah. As a kid of the 90s, purity culture, the phrase makes me think, of course, of Joshua Harris and all that stuff that we went through in the 90s. Was it actually worse for us, or was that just our own personal experience of this common thread that has been equally bad throughout Christian history?
Right. Yeah. So I grew up in the 70s and 80s, and we didn't have a name for it, purity culture. It was just you're expected keep your knees together, girls. You know, you don't until you're married. And that was how my parents raised me, and then it was the church influence as well. But it wasn't like um I don't think a central theme. Whereas in the 90s, when, oh my God, purity rings and purity balls and whatever else, it's like uh, people got more and more deeply entrenched in evangelical fundamentalism and the rigidity of thought, the black and white thinking that you have to be, purity is everything, and purity is all about you having an intact hymen if you're a female. And of course, some females are not even born with a hymen. That whole hymen worship is just, I'm sorry to say, it's ridiculous. And it can be deadly in some cultures.
It is absolutely shocking and appalling, the lack of sexual education in the Christian community, at least for
Yeah.
my generation. Just
Mhm.
absolutely shocking. Um,
Right.
yeah, I'll leave that one there. Tell me this: is there anything at all good that the church has taught regarding sexuality? Is there like an underlying thread of something that's valuable in there? For example, it seems like um, n- not having a child too early in your life and without someone to help you raise them is going to be harder than doing it with when you're old enough to take care of them and you have someone partnered with you. Um, Maybe that's just my own evangelical background bias, but it seems like maybe there's something to that that would be helpful for a community if I see religion as a culturally evolved thing that has helped us build in communities. I don't know.
I think that the judgmental piece is too hard to overlook there when it comes to religion and sex and sexuality. What children and young people need is accurate sex education. And actually, I just finished a resource, and I'll be happy to get the link to you. But it's all about how to talk to your kids about sex, and it's from a secular perspective. I think it's very, very important. So even when children are preschool, that's the time to be working with them on consent. Do you like it when so and so takes your toy? No, you need to ask when you want to touch something that belongs to someone else. Do you want Aunt Martha to give you a hug? Okay, you don't have to. If you don't want to be touched by another person, you don't have to be touched by another person. So we start this while they're young. And then, as they're getting into their tweens and so forth, to be talking with them about coercion and peer pressure. And these are kind of ongoing conversations as the kids get older. And then you're talking about connection. These are all C words, right? Connection. What does it mean to have a real connection? How can you tell when someone's being honest with you? Because of course they're going to be on the internet by then. There's all sorts of predators on the internet. So we want the kids to understand genuine connection. And then conception and contraception. as they are, in middle school or 12 years old. You better have talked with your kid by the time they're 12 about how babies are made, what leads to girls getting pregnant. And you just do it in a matter of fact way. You're watching TV with them, and it's teenagers, and they're making out and whatever's going on, and you just bring up a question about it. Oh, I don't do you see kids at your school doing that, or whatever, these kind of things. We want the kids to know they can bring any question to us, and it's not going to be met with a harsh, judgmental, or shaming response. Sometimes we might have to say to their question, oh, let me think about that a little bit. I'll think about it and I'll be able to give you a good answer. And I've had to do that, and my face has been beet red because I was so taken aback by a question that a kid asked me. But what was important wasn't how I felt about their question, it was that they needed accurate information.
Yeah. Well, and that can be terrifying when you yourself did not get that and you want to do the right thing and you also don't want to go overboard and be like, you should go try everything, but also not like impose your own strict religion on them. Trying to raise your kid in a way you were not raised is a special challenge, maybe.
Yeah, because we know there are dangers out there, so we want them to be aware of what the dangers are. But I mean, ultimately, for me as a parent, I want my kids to be in charge of themselves and of their sexuality, because especially, and I'm thinking of girls and teenage girls and even women, we can get into situations, and we have been taught not to use our voice. It's not when women in the church are to be silent, essentially. And so we can get into situations then when we're dating, when we've left religion, um, and men can be trying things on us, and we're not sure what to do. It's not what we want. We have to be able to use our voice and be in charge of our own bodies at all times, deciding what is acceptable to us and what's not acceptable. For some of my clients, I actually encourage them to take self-defense classes because they've never yelled. They've never raised their voice. And that can be an opportunity for them in a setting where other women are also yelling. It can just release something and be very helpful.
Yeah. Yeah. What are some things that you see clients going through in their deconstruction process that are either encouraging to your heart because you like to see them take those steps, or things that might seem like backward steps, or that it hurts your heart to see them struggle with, or something like that?
Um, it's definitely hard when people are losing important relationships. Um, and that's hard no matter what stage of life they're at. It's hard when your kid loses a friend, but then, yeah, people are losing marriages or being shunned by communities because they no longer believe the same. That's a really painful thing. And then, I mean, there are also victories and celebrations along the way when someone says, I did this for the first time. Like some people have never had a drink of alcohol, and it is a big deal for them to go out with a friend who is a non-judgmental, supportive person, and they order their first glass of wine or whatever it is. It seems like such a small thing, but to them it can be a very big deal. So celebrating milestones, and also I hope that people would learn from some of the mistakes that I made where it was like I was in my second adolescence. I'm going to deny myself nothing. I'm going to do whatever I want. But of course, some of the costs associated with that can be much higher in adulthood. Um, yeah, so you're not in a rush. You don't have to be in a rush to deconstruct. And people tend to dive right in, and every waking hour then they're listening to podcasts and reading books and watching videos. You can burn yourself out in this deconstruction process. If you were in religion for 35 years, you're not going to be able to get it all out of you, in 5 months. it's a journey. And even now, 15 years later, sometimes I'm still triggered by something. And then I just recognize, oh, that's interesting. I haven't felt that for a while. Maybe I have some more inner work to do. I also have a resource I'd be happy to send your way about uh, religious trauma syndrome and complex PTSD coping strategies, because religious trauma syndrome essentially has a lot of the same features as complex PTSD, because we were exposed to the trauma over and over and over again, as opposed to one terrible, big, bad, awful thing that happened.
Yeah. Yep. That'd be a very interesting. I've been, as you're talking about like people trying things for the first time, I've been shocked in my own deconversion process to find out how safe the world is and how loving the world is. Like it's a pretty great place, and most things are not uh, so terribly catastrophic. And one of the things that helped me see that was actually listening to Mormon deconversion stories where they're like, okay, so I guess it's the day I'm going to try coffee and this feels so evil. And like, I'm sitting there going, it's coffee. Like, yeah, it's a stimulant, it's a drug, whatever, but like, it's not going to alter who you are. But for them, it's like, it's monumental. Um, for me, the idea that some of the things that I held that were like such a big deal, like actually it's not that big a deal. Like you can just try that out and it's all gonna be okay. You're still gonna live.
Yeah. I had one shocking revelation that came to me. And so I don't live in the United States. Um, and there was not a stimulant, but I'll call it a party favor. Someone invited me to try, and I tried it. And then next thing you know, I'm in the bathroom, I'm staring at myself, and I just start weeping. And my partner that I was living with at the time, he runs in and says, what's wrong? What's wrong? And I said, look at me. I'm looking in the mirror. I said, I'm beautiful. Like I never saw that ever in my life. And I had taken this one substance, and it had an interaction with me such that I felt like I loved myself for the first time. And that's an experience I wouldn't have had. And of course, we want people to stick within the laws of the land, so people have to know what's acceptable and what's safe. Um, but that was such a precious experience. I will um, never forget that. It was beautiful.
Yeah, yeah. There is so much beauty and meaning. It's all the things that we were promised. It can only be found in God. Like there's so much of it, and I want to say so much more, but I don't want to be offensive to Christians. But like there's so much more of it outside of religion. It seems like if religion has one main thing that I see I'm going to say atheist world, for lack of a better term, struggling to compete with, it would be the community of the church. Do you think the church has a monopoly on community? And what are your thoughts on that topic?
Right. Yeah, that's such a big one. The only other organization that I see that has been able to successfully replicate, and this I think even potentially predates religion, but I don't know, is the army. Military service. That's, you are brothers and sisters in arms. Your lives depend on trusting each other. They're eating together, they're marching together, they're singing together. That is what people do in church as well. That's a type
Yeah.
of, it's like a type of almost manipulation, forcing you into a close relationship with other people. Because when you're Christians, if you're all playing by the same rule book, that's a big help. You all know what's acceptable and what's not acceptable. The problem is that there's so much judgment involved in that. And so if I don't believe the same things anymore, I'm out of the club. I can't be a member of the club anymore. And rebuilding community is a massive task for my clients. And I tell them, church was a one-stop shop where all your needs were met. You had the entertainment, if it was, an entertaining pastor. You had the psychological, emotional, intellectual stimulation, all these different things going on in one place. Now Life is more like a patchwork quilt. You're going to have your mountain biking community. You're going to have your humanist group or skeptic group community. You're going to have your book club. You know, you have to reach now and you have to do the work. There's work involved. It's not just showing up on a Sunday morning. You have to be the one meeting other people. Look for meetup groups in your community. Look for Eventbrite. Look for different things that are going on in your community. So it's not enough just to be building community online. That's a first step for a lot of us. But get out of your house, meet your neighbors. That also makes the world less scary. And that's part of why we've seen a real splintering of society as people have just stayed in their homes on their phones and their computers. We need to be getting back out into the community, working side by side, volunteering with people who look different, who sound different, who belong to different communities than we do, and even different faith groups than we do.
Yeah. Well, that sucks. I
I
wish there
wish
was a
it
different
was
answer.
easier.
But I
Yeah.
mean, there's so many things like that in religion, Christianity specifically, just like things that you were promised that you had that were really comfortable. You had your C's at the beginning, and I really wanted to remember those: certainty, community, and there were like three others or something.
Oh, yes, that religion promises us certainty, security, order, and acceptance or community.
Yeah,
Certainty, security, order, and acceptance. And really, when I think of some folks who end up falling down conspiracy rabbit holes, some of those folks have been always on the outskirts of society. They never were truly accepted. And then they fall down this conspiracy rabbit hole. Bingo, there's a group of people. Oh, yeah, now you know the truth. You
yeah,
found the secret sauce. So suddenly they're being told that they're accepted. They're being told that this is the right belief. They've got it right. They feel secure because they know this secret knowledge. But that's actually also what goes on in religions, in all sorts of different religions. And I want people to think about too, they're born in North America, there's a good chance they are Christian. If they were born in India, it would be a different story. If they were born in another Asian country, it would be a different story. Religion is often very much a case of geography.
yeah. I want to spend some more time thinking about the things that the church offers and how those manifest when you leave the church. And like I was saying, the disappointing part for me is now it's your responsibility. Like someone isn't going to hand you community. You have to go out and like this is your thing. If you're going to have community, you have to make it happen. And that sucks. But I there's also a what is it? A dignity in taking ownership of that for yourself, I think too. Of like
Yes.
it's not that it's your value, your morals, all that stuff that was just like handed to you. Now you're like, oh, I can take ownership of this stuff, or you know, in the sexual realm, like this is my body. Like I actually this is my body. Like I own this thing.
Yeah.
I can do with this whatever I want to.
Mhm,
So yeah,
mhm.
there's so much freedom outside of Christianity.
Yeah, and music also. I see you're surrounded by pictures of musicians. I see your keyboard there. That is also a community unto itself because there's a common language. You can sit down and read music for something you've never played before, and you can potentially play it or at least get the hang of it. So definitely, um, things that you found in church, look and see outside the church where you might get those. If you loved going on missions trips and now you're no longer a Christian, there are humanitarian based vacations that you can go on where you're actually doing stuff and helping a community. Or, you know, if you really miss playing on the worship group Sunday morning, see about either joining a band or an orchestra or something else local in your community. Um, Join a book club. There are so many different things going on all around us. We just have to make ourselves aware of where these opportunities are. And sometimes it's up to us to create the opportunity. There had never been a conference on religious trauma. And so then I decided, oh, guess what we need? This is what we're going to do. And so started the conference on religious trauma.
Well, thank you for all that you are doing in this community. I'm going to put links to all your stuff in all the descriptions, but you want to tell people who are just listening where they can find you and your stuff?
Sure. Yes. Thank you. My website is divorcingreligion.com, and my book is Divorcing Religion, a memoir and survival handbook. And the first part of the book is my memoir. And then the second part of the book is based on a workshop that I developed a few years ago. It's got 7 modules, and it's things that relate to leaving our religious faith and rebuilding our life, building a safe and supportive secular community. So the book is helpful for people. You can find me on social media. Most places, Divorcing Religion is my handle. Some I just go by my name, Janice Selby.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thank you all for joining me. I put in a great deal of effort to give this to you for free, so now it's your turn. Click a couple buttons to give me something for free, and we can keep this good thing going between us. And for you like-minded superfans, make sure you check out the link in the description so that you can find more free ways to show your support and keep this love train rolling. Be well, everyone. I'm rooting for you.